Well, I was joking earlier on about there being a part one and a part two, but we ran out of storage, so we've deleted some things, and now we've got a little part two, just a little part two.
Honestly, part two is a lot shorter than part one.
So there might be a little lack in the continuity between parts, is what we're saying.
Anyway, we were just summing up Amelia.
Amelia.
I don't know, I've gone quieter and whispering. But Amelia, yes, this parent recognised the relevance of of what Amelia wanted to present to everybody about the recycling and her parent in South Africa. And she suggested, and interestingly, her daughter had just started at the centre. And it was a really nice connection for the mum and the daughter, who were new to the centre, to be able to want to share and be able to share something a little bit about the new child and their family. And who's to say that that's not something that added to a little bit of maybe their sense of newness wearing off and becoming a little bit more sense of belonging.
And also really valuable for the wider family to be able to come involved in in Amelia's early childhood setting as well, which through distance wouldn't have been able to do so necessarily.
2 or 3 days later, sure enough, a load of email came through to us and at the centre, and the opportunity of all these photos of this girl's grandmother's recycling plant in South Africa and all the things they get up to, and messages from grandma and everything. So it allowed that sort of continuity of Amelia's interest to be endorsed. It allowed Amelia to conduct another presentation to the rest of the group, but also the other girl who was new to the centre being able to share a little bit about her grandparents and her family in Fano and everything like that. So ICT played its part. It doesn't mean that those things don't happen because ICT wasn't there, but ICT played its part in this case, and ICT enables something specifically, such as immediacy of images and things and information to occur. But I don't think we don't think it's necessarily replacing other things.
No, it sits alongside, and I think if you look through a social cultural lens, then that you do get that balance, and you do get that you find that it's used in meaningful, purposeful ways within particular contexts as well, and where children have ownership and are empowered through the use of ICT, they're able to direct their own learning. Within those boundaries, ICT can perhaps have a very different place to, as I say, the old drill and skill rote learning programs on computers sort of sitting in the corner of the room, really. So it's an exciting time. I think it is an exciting time because we are very much at that crest of the wave at the moment. Things are changing really quickly. One quite interesting thing is that often children will use ICT in different ways to perhaps how we think they should be used. Be open to that, because you can be taken on quite amazing journeys because they'll see affordances there that you don't necessarily. I was recently at a social media conference, and it was really interesting. We were sitting in this room talking about Snapchat, and I don't know if you're familiar with Snapchat, but it's taking off, and that's one of the bigger moves at the moment, is we're moving away from text-based messaging and ICT use to images. That's one of the key moves away. So Snapchat is very much about sending an image. It's ephemeral, it evaporates, if that's the right word, within I think 10 seconds of somebody receiving it. So anyway, we were sort of sitting and having this big conversation about, gosh, Snapchat, is the point that it's ephemeral? Is that what makes it so important for people to use? Because it is huge. It is being used considerably. Anyway, so we had all this big conversation and put all these hypotheses in place. I went outside and talked to my 15-year-old, who's an avid user of Snapchat. And I said, is it because, the images are ephemeral? Is that what really attracts you to this? And she said, yeah, they're not. I said, oh, what do you mean they're not? And she said, they're not because actually you can take a screenshot of the image. So if something comes through and you want to save it, you can take a screenshot and save it. And I said, well, isn't that a bit sneaky? Because if somebody's sending something that they think is going to, vanish, but you're keeping it. Is that okay? And she said, well, it is actually, because they know if you've actually taken a Snapchat, a screenshot, because the icon changes slightly on their device. So it's actually really transparent. So this whole big thing that we were talking about whether or not that was a really important factor in why Snapchat was favoured over different software programs or social media aspects, didn't actually exist from the people actually using the equipment itself. And I think that was another key message which came through. I mean, this was a research conference, but I think can directly relate into teaching practice as well, is we have to be familiar with what we're using. Okay, we have to understand what we're using, what it's used for and how it's used, for it to be successfully used by us in our teaching practice as well.
So there is that need for, as part of that ICT pedagogy, not just to have those philosophical approaches to learning, which is obviously constructivist in nature, constructing meaning and information for and with children, often triggered by what interests them or what's captivated them. We have to also have to develop some technological knowledge as well, and that can be a little bit scary, and I had to hold my hand up as being a little bit anxious around that, because it disrupts some of my power base of being a person who should know what they're doing, if I'm going to call myself a teacher. But I think that's really valuable to do, because sometimes we need to be shaken out of our power base of who we think we are as being in control, and start to listen to children and their knowledge.
And sometimes as well, it's really digging deep within ourselves, as we've been talking about a lot recently, thinking about our own attitudes towards ICT, whether or not it is something that we value, and really reflecting on that as well, because that can be one of the biggest barriers. Lots of barriers can be overcome. It takes time, it takes a little bit of money, it takes professional development. Those things can be overcome, but one of the biggest barriers that's been identified is actually our own particular values of ICT. And I hold my hands up. There's a lovely clip which I'll send through as well, which Eddie Izzard talks about whether or not you have techno joy or techno fear. No, I admit I have techno joy. I love it. I'll be dabbling, but I actually have to hold that back, because I have to think about what I'm using and why I'm using it. Otherwise, I'd be doing all sorts of things. So the things that I use in my teaching practice, I hope, are underpinned by pedagogical choices. You might be wondering at times, as you're working on your e-portfolios, exactly how that works, but it is based on those forms of decisions.
So just summing up.
Oh yes,
really.
We said this was going to be a short one.
Yes. The three examples we've given
They're
you,
little vignettes.
Jack, Jessica, and Amelia, perhaps have given you some indications that this is the way they operate. This is how some of the techniques they use for making sense of things that interest them, that have captured their interest.
Oh, good connection to the paper.
And how they've also drawn in some of their experiences and expectations, perhaps in this case of using ICT to support their learning and support their interests or discoveries. And that's really important. And we talk about the policy foundations for discovery, and those are that underpinning that children are often on a mission for discovery, and ICT is just one of those tools for supporting that. Right, that was it really.
So after a very long summary, there's nothing else I can add to that. Enjoy. I'm sorry that we've waffled on for so long.
We're stopping there because the sun is rising in the background, and we've gone talking all night. So many apologies for that. But it's lovely to, I hope, share a little few bits. And the good thing is about ICT, and the good thing in this case is that you can switch us off.
Yeah, which I'm about to do now.
Ka kite anō.